Well, it's August 11th, 2025 here. Oh, there's some of our firewood that needs to get put in the pile. Yeah, it's not raining today. That's kind of a new thing for us. Up here, south of us, of course, everybody's irrigating their center points and stuff. Get their beans and corn in good shape, and pretty quick they'll decide it's okay and they'll quit the watering, and we might actually see some dry weather up here. So I went shopping here this morning and picked up some of these lubricated wads. I think we paid 10 bucks for these 50. I'm not going into what brand they are. And plan to doing some shooting on those things. I want to do some testing on there to see if they're actually doing as well as a lot of folks claim in the comments on my videos that the wads do. Be using here today is a copy of an 1860. This one done by Pieta. Somebody did kind of a job here on antiquing it, or tried to. Not the way the gun came, I'm pretty sure, because they wouldn't have this backstrap looking like that. Anyway, I may have to do some work on the front sight before I start shooting it, because this thing is shooting about 10 inches high. Trigger pull is pretty decent on it. I can do pretty good work with that, but that front sight's causing me to have to post two targets up there, a lower one to aim at, and then the bullets will flop into the one above it. So I think I'm going to add on to this before I actually get to running some tests, and then I'll be using some of the lube that I mix up, that I put on the end of the chambers, and we'll kind of compare that to what these things do. And the reason I'm shooting the 1860 Army rather than a 58 Remington or something is because I can get the camera looking right down the bore of this thing pretty easily and get some idea of what kind of falling we're going to see and what happens when we try to clean the gun up. So okay, anyway, we're going to get to all that, but I think first I got to go down and add something on that front sight. And here's what we did at the front sight. It's a pretty ugly job, and those that know how to solder would call it amateur hour, which it certainly was. But I have an advantage in this thing, and I can pop that off if I want to, clean that sight up, and it'll be original, or pretty much original. Not that this gun is anyway. So the other advantage with that soldered on thing, I guess, would be that I don't have to worry about punching this front sight out and then trying to get it the right equipment or tools. You have to pinch the next one back in. On this thing here, if it does come off, it's just going to bop off of there, and I can solder another piece on there. So anyway, first thing we'll do here is load this gun up, take a look inside the barrel, see what it looks like. We can get it up to the light here. Some idea of what it looks like clean. And the first thing we'll do here is load it up with 6 of our wads, shoot those. I think I'll shoot 12 with those, and I'll check the barrel after shooting 6 of it, pop the barrel off and see what it looks like inside, and then shoot another 6 and then see what it's like inside, and then go to cleaning on it and see how that works out. Alright, we got our powder down and we've set the wads here on top. I've got a dowel here. I'm just going to shove these down, make sure they're square on the powder. And then we'll stick our round balls on top of those. I'm not paying any attention to where the sprue cutoff is on those. Just going to do that. I'll set them over here on my press and shoot those down. Looking pretty dark all the way along the barrel here. Okay, we're going to shoot another 6. Here again's a group that we shot. There's a couple of them down in here somewhere. Not sure where they're at. I've got 3 of them in this spot. I think there were 2 hits down here. The 2s indicate my second string. The 1s were the first string. One of the shots of the first string is down here, and one of the shots, I think the first shot on the second string was down here somewhere too. So the 2s indicate second string, 1s are first string. Not totally a bad group. I'm saying about 3. You know, if I measure across here, probably 3 to 4 inches. You know, nothing to brag about, but then not that bad either. Of course, it's not getting any brighter in there. Didn't expect that. So she's pretty much dark all the way. Next thing I want to do is run some dry patches through there to see if that fouling is soft enough to push out with the dry patch. I know if I stick wet patches down there, which I'll do later on just in case it didn't catch everything with the dry ones. Okay, looking at how the patches come out. This is the first patch. I flipped it over. So there's our second one, third one, and flipped it over for number 4. And definitely a lot of fouling came out, or at least quite a bit on the first patch compared to number 4. I think I'll run a couple more down there just to see if we can get that cleaned up. Well, so here's number 5. That black stuff over there, just artwork on my patches. And then number 6. Well, we're seeing it getting pretty light right here. Let's take a look down there and see what we got in there. Well, she's got rid of some of the stuff, but we still got things left in there, I'd say. So we're going to run our wet patch through and see what that does. Okay, there's our first wet patch. We'll run another one down. Okay, let's see how this one's coming out. Second wet one. Alright, let's keep at it. There's our third wet patch. I wouldn't say that's clean yet. Flip it over and give it another one. And there's our fourth wet patch, starting to look a little lighter. Okay, I think this is number 5. Now I know somebody's going to wonder what I'm using for cleaning solvent here. I'm just using water. Somebody's going to say, well, if you were using a better solvent, you wouldn't have that problem. Yeah, maybe not. But I found water pretty much does a good job on these things. I do think there are solvents that'll help some, but well, there's number 5. She's getting pretty good right now. Let's go one more time. Okay, and there's what it took pretty much to get it clean. That was number 6 for a wet patch, and we used 4, I think I ran actually 6 dry patches through there first, and then 4 wet ones. Let's take a look inside her now. And I would say she is clean. I'm going to run a dry patch through it next. Yeah, and there's a dry patch. So, no fouling left in the barrel. I know there are other ways to clean guns and everything, but the idea here is to take some of our lube that we use, or that I've been using, and I'm going to not use the wads then, and I'll put some of this on the end of the chambers, and use the same shooting procedure, same cleaning procedure, and all we're looking for here is to see if there's any difference. And we'll also be checking our group sizes, which this is not a bad group size. I say there's a couple down in here someplace, but you know, 21 yards. I got no real complaints about that. I'm not seeing any flyers out of that group, so I don't see any issues with that. We've loaded up our cylinder here, and we've got 6 in there, and that's what that looks like when I've got the lube on the end of the chambers. So lube on the end of the chambers, and of course no wads. Same charge, same gun, same shooter. A little cap jam there, but I think we got her cleared. We'll find out real quick here. Okay, there's 6. Okay, we've shot 6. Well, halfway's a decent group down there. And we can show that a little later on. I want to check down the barrel because I did that before with the wads. I think there it is. We can get that to zoom in a little bit. I know it doesn't look as dark to me as with the wads, but we can compare these afterwards. Alright, let's load up another 6. Okay, we've marked those first 6 shots using lube, and we're going to shoot 6 more. Load it up. Well, that felt kind of funny. Almost kind of like a hang fire. That one felt okay. Yeah, here's our target. My ones were the first group. So second string, there's one down here. One. I think shot number 5 felt like a hang fire. I wasn't sure if it was what went on there. But I've got one seen in here. Something over in this side. Otherwise, it's kind of hard to tell where all those 6 went. Anyway, I want to do next is take that barrel off and have a look inside and see how things are. So here's a look down the barrel after 12 shots. Again, we can compare that a little later with what the barrel looked like with the wads. And next thing to do is run some patches through there. I'll run some dry ones first like I did before, and then we'll run some wet ones. Okay, here's dry patch number 1. I forgot to mention that as I'm sliding those patches through, I can feel it. Seems like it's a lot more raspy, sandpaper-ish when I'm using the wads and when I'm using the lube. This seems to go a little smoother. Anyway, that's pretty dirty for the first patch. Let's check a few more. I'll flip this over and run this side for number 2. Alright, there's number 2. Number 3, then we'll flip her over. And there's how number 4 comes out. And the real thing is what's looking like in the barrel. They're feeling pretty smooth as I shoved them through. I can't see in the camera, but I'm thinking it's looking pretty. Oh yeah, that's looking really nice. I mean, pretty decent in there. Alright, let's run some wet patches through. I think it took 6 of them to get that falling out with the using the wads. Let's see what it takes here this time. And there's wet patch number 1. And there's number 2. I've got a little bit of black on the sides here. I suppose I can run one more. Now I was going to call that number 2 pretty clean, but I think number 3 here is definitely showing nothing left. Let's run a dry patch through. And there's that dry patch, picking up almost nothing. Okay, here's looking at kind of the conglomeration of patches. It didn't take a real rocket scientist to figure out after shooting the lube, looking down the barrel, there wasn't anywhere near the fouling in that we had when we were using those wads. So here's our patches that we ended up with to get a clean barrel using the lube, and here's what it took pretty much over here to get a clean barrel when we had the wads in there. So, you know, to me there's a pretty big difference. Not that it affects anybody, got to clean the gun anyway, I suppose, but let's take a look at our targets here. So here's the one when we used our wads, and it's not a bad grouping down here. I think there's a couple shots down here below. 12 shots, 20 or 21 yards. Yeah, and not decent if you're shooting cowboy action, or well, there you go, spider, or maybe just kind of plinking around and stuff. Not a problem. If you're target shooting, on the other hand, I think you might want to take a look at using some of the lube kind of thing. Here's my 12-shot group. With that, I'm not measuring out things, but I think I did have one I called a hang fire. Yeah, maybe it was just me, I don't know. But anyway, we got 12 shots here, pretty decent, and I think this is one of the reasons that when folks have wondered why I use lube and I don't go to the with wads. I mean, I've got a lot of felt that I bought once upon a time, and some pretty decent lube that I mix in with this stuff, but to make my own wads. But I wanted to purchase some just to see if they were hugely better than what my do-it-yourself ones are, and I'm not really seeing a lot of difference. So for me, I guess I'm sticking with my lube. I would like to go in some ways to the wads because it's a lot less messy. I think it's some simpler to shoot them, but if you're looking for let's say the ultimate in accuracy, I think you want to consider going with the lube into the chambers. Well, I should mention I got a second reason that I go with the lube. I mean, I like mixing this stuff up. It's kind of fun. This stuff is fairly inexpensive. I mean, you're using the main ingredient up here is the good old Crisco. I think everybody knows what that pretty much costs. Otherwise, I'm putting beeswax in there and some olive oil and some other secret ingredients. We all know how that works. And this is what I went through last year as far as percussion caps go. I think there's 13 or 14 tins here at 100 a piece. So we're running 20 cents a piece for my for wads. Yeah, my wife's got the second job now, so I can probably talk her into buying some Christmas, all that kind of good stuff. But I kind of like mixing this stuff up. It's kind of fun. So that's the second reason that I go with the lube.